You know where Nashville, Tennessee is?
Oh, yeah.
So we're just south, kind of southeast, about 20 minutes from there.
Okay.
We're the suburbs of
Davidson
County.
Okay. One of my favorite musical artists is from Cheatham County.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ashland City.
Upchurch?
Upchurch?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to hate me for even saying this because the term is not very descriptive. He does hip hop, which is country rap, which sounds completely crazy to most people, but until you hear it, it's basically...
there's a guy called Colt Ford.
Colt Ford. Yep, that's the same thing.
That does some of that. Yeah, I'm familiar with Colt Ford. He and my friend Morgan Mills did a song together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like rap, except it's not about killing cops. So
about killing cows?
Yeah, that's right. Killing cows.
Killing cows and beers?
Yeah. I'm too lazy to be dastardly.
Dastardly, I like that. That's a good attorney term. Is that a legal term?
No, it reminds me of cartoons when I was a kid. There was Dastardly Dave. Remember, he was Bullwinkle and the Rocky the Squirrel.
I remember them. Yeah,
he was the bad guy. He tied people down to railroad tracks, and the Canadian Mountie would rescue him.
Yeah, he had that top hat.
Yeah,
him and Natasha.
Yeah, well, that was Boris and Natasha.
Boris and Natasha. Okay, and then the other guy, I remember spies. Him. He was like a little short dude. Yeah.
Funny story about Boris and Natasha. I was a Soviet studies major in college, and I had to learn Russian. And the instructors would say, "Oh my goodness, your pronunciation is so perfect. You know, did you live in then the Soviet Union?" And I said, "No, I'm just imitating Boris Badenov from the cartoons." And Tom v Sovietskim Soyuzom, we do my что кровь весть. And I would just imitate a cartoon character, and
that's hilarious.
And it worked.
That got you the inflections where you needed them, huh?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh! Did you ever look up to see who did that voice? Who was the actual person who did the?
No, didn't. Yeah.
Was it Mel Blanc?
Oh, it could be. He did all those voices. He was pretty incredible.
Yeah, he did a lot of them. No doubt about it. So I am recording, by the way, and all that was good stuff, so I'm going to include all that, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
Unless you don't want people knowing that you speak Russian.
Well, very poorly.
Give us a little hint of your prowess on Russian.
Я люблю пиво. I love beer. Я люблю водку. I love vodka. Я адвокат. I'm a lawyer.
Say welcome to another edition of the Talking Lead podcast, Leadheads. Make it up.
Mumble, Leadheads. That's all I got. My Russian is pretty much dissipated.
Yeah. Do it in your Boris voice then, with an English accent.
Welcome to show, Leadheads, heads of lead, however you say in your tongue.
Welcome to the Talking Lead podcast. And in no way, shape, or form are we endorsing Russia. Just so you know.
No, they're clearly the bad guys.
Because there are some Russians that aren't bad guys. That have that accent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So there you have it, Leadheads. Another episode officially kicked off here. The voice that you are hearing is a new guy, Glen Tate, joining the podcast, Leadheads. Glen, welcome in.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great. We're fellow members of the Firearms Radio Network. We're affiliates, I think is the actual term. So
I don't know.
It's cool.
You can also find us on the Firearms Radio Network. So another place where you can find the Talking Lead podcast and Glen's podcast, which is called Prepping 2.0. Did I get that right?
You did. That's right. And the title actually has some meaning to it. There are all kinds of prepping podcasts that are kind of at the 1.0 level, which are basic things like, get beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. And of course, you need to do that. We have no disrespect for the beginning level. Everybody needs to start somewhere. But we wanted to do a podcast. And I say we, my wife and I, co-host Shelby Gallagher, who's also a prepper fiction author. We wanted to do a show that was the intermediate level, and we tackled some of the more, I don't know if complex is the right word. We don't have a complicated podcast.
Involved.
We wanted to
more involved.
What's it?
The more
involved. Yes. Thank you. The English word is involved. I was thinking of the Russian word.
You had your Russian mind going. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, not at all. And so we talk about that next level of prepping more in the context of mutual assistance groups, comms, water. We talk about food. We talk a lot about current events, not in the sense of, what's in the news this week, but in trends. We think America is collapsing, especially under the current regime. And when you're not elected, I use the term regime. That's where I got it from. And so the threat, basically, we like to talk about what the threats are that are out there. And it's not just political and economic. I mean, if there's natural disasters or something, we'll talk about that. But it's our belief that the most likely threats to your lifestyle being disrupted are political, economic, and social. So that's what we talk about. And we have an absolute blast doing it. The show has grown. We never thought it would be actually a thing. It's funny how it started out.
Yeah.
I'm driving down the highway with my wife, and we were playing a little game we call Live or Die. And I should fill folks in on what that means. It's not, driving into, train crossings with a train coming or something like that. What it is we would look over into the car next to us and instantly have to have a first reaction. The other person would have to have a first reaction of where that person's going to likely live or die in a collapse and why. And it was completely politically incorrect, very judgmental, very superficial. And we would crack ourselves up. We laughed so hard doing it. And then I looked over at my wife and I said, we should do a podcast where we could do funny stuff like this. And she said, I don't know, that sounds kind of hard. And I said, stupidly, how hard can it be? Yeah, famous last words. And so the show's been going on for about 3 years now. We've been amazed at the popularity of it. And it's a big part of our week. We do a weekly podcast. And nice. It's one of the highlights of our week is preparing the show and the guests. And we have a Patreon side of the show, and Patreons usually get to ask questions and of our guests and that sort of stuff. So we like to interact with folks. It's just fun.
Very nice.
And
now you guys also have this on the radio. Is that right?
Yeah, we do. Right? We're on a few stations, mostly in the West, in Oregon and Idaho. And that's been interesting because
is that live you're doing that, or is that recorded?
It's recorded. Yeah. And that is interesting because that regular show, which is not the Patreon version has the after show, which, as the name implies, is after the show. But the regular show, we have hard breaks because we're on radio stations, and then we'll have guests, and I'm sure you've run into this too, where you have guests and they're making some great point, and you're kind of yelling, "Hey, we got to go! We got to go! We have a hard break coming up." So.
Fortunately, I don't. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, I'm not syndicated on any radio station, so I don't have to worry about that. So we just keep talking. I don't set a limit on how long we talk, or I don't filter my guest, and that's the great thing about doing it this way. I don't answer to anybody but me. So
there
you go, baby. That's right. So looking forward to hearing more about your podcast. You've got a couple of interesting stories also that I want to get into that I had read about and heard about from other interviews that you've done. But before we get into that, Leadheads, if you hadn't had an opportunity, make sure you go back to last week's episode where we talked about U.S. companies that are aiding Ukraine civilians. And specifically, we had on Kel-Tec Weapons and Cryptic Outdoor Group. We had Chad Enos with Kel-Tec. We had Butch Whiting, CEO, co-founder of Cryptic, and our good buddy Brooksy, who is now their marketing guy over there. I don't know specifically what his title is, but he's over the marketing over there at Cryptic. And then they brought on Kevin Holland, which if you guys aren't familiar with who Kevin Holland is the only American to have served on SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force. He served on both of those special operations groups. And he was over there doing some boots on the ground humanitarian missions, and he talked about what he was doing there on helping evacuations and things like that, and some of the I don't know what you call it, some of the things he ran into while he was there that he had to deal with. So it was a pretty interesting episode. Go back, check it out. And we're going to get Kevin back on because he's got some pretty cool stories. I think he was part of the group, the team that took down Osama bin Laden. So maybe we can get him to talk a little bit about that also. Of course, we got to thank our sponsors. We'll get that out of the way real quick. Mission First Tactical. You go to missionfirsttactical.com. Use the code LEADHEAD, and you're going to get 20% off. And they sent me some new dump trays the other day. I'm grabbing them here, having to take them out of the pack. But for our AK corner, so as you lead heads know, Century Arms is sponsoring our AK corner this year. And can you see that? You see that?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So these are dump trays that they make. They make holsters, and then the leftover material that they make their holsters from, they wanted to do something with it instead of wasting it. So they just decided to make these dump trays, and they make little tactical wallet business card holders also. But you can get anything that you want printed on these, and it's injected in there. So this isn't just overlaying on there that's going to scratch off. That stuff's injected into that material there, and it's going to last. I use them for my gun cleaning trays. So when I'm disassembling my firearms, I put all my little parts in there if I'm building one. It works great for that. It's very resistant to the chemicals that you use. And speaking of, if you're using the SEAL 1 is all green, safe for the environment. Green technology that goes behind their products. SEAL 1, go to seal1.com, use the code LEADHEAD, get 25% off, seal1.com. And we're going to be giving away one of these packets next episode. So you lead heads be listening in. We're going to be giving away a full rifle or pistol kit. It'll be your choice to one of you lucky lead heads. So go check them out.
Hey, if I could, I got a funny story about Century Arms.
Absolutely, as long as it's a good funny story.
Oh, it's a good funny story. By the way, I'm a big fan of Century Arms. I have quite a few of their AKs. And we'll talk about it later maybe, but I wrote a 10-book series, prepper fiction novel series, and I snuck in
299
some of the
days.
Good guys.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
That's right, 299 days. I snuck in there some of the good guys using some C-39s, which are fantastic rifles. But funny story, I think it's okay if I tell it. We'll find out, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, can I swear on your show? That's actually part of a quote in here.
Absolutely. Like I said, I do not filter my guests. So
okay, because I'm quoting somebody else, so it's not gratuitous. But so I got to know the marketing guy at Century Arms from a few years ago, a guy named Jacob Herman. I'm sure you know Jacob.
Jacob, yeah, I know Jacob well. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. He's quite a character. And so he was in Seattle. I used to live in Western Washington. Now I live in Montana. Thank God, by the way, I moved. And so he was in Seattle, and he said, "Hey, we should link up and go have a couple cocktails." And with Jacob, that means like a half gallon. And so so we're in downtown Seattle, and we're at this absolutely magnificent restaurant, the Madison Grill. It's the bourbon there. Some of the shots were $105 a piece. That should give you an idea about what kind of place this is. And I don't go to places like that. Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's buying all of them. So we walk in the door, and he sees some people at a table he knows, and he goes, "No way." And then he goes, "Did you get the fucking AKs I sent you?" And these four people go, "Yeah, man, they were awesome." They were NRA lobbyists that he sent some AKs to. And then the NRA guys were we're in a great mood. Probably it was $105, shots
bourbon.
of bourbon.
Uh-huh.
And they said, I'll never forget. They looked at me and they looked at Jake and they said, the drinks tonight are on the NRA. And I remember there was an Uber SUV involved. I kind of blacked out a little bit. I woke up at 2 in the morning.
New T-shirt.
That's right. In a hotel room with Jacob, separate beds, I might add. I'm a very straight dude, so is he. And I threw up, and he was laughing at me, and I said, "Oh no, this is going to end up being a good thing because I got it out of my system." And then he gets up at like 7 in the morning, and he starts cranking an NWA album.
That's Jacob.
Yeah, exactly.
And
he's quite a character, and it was quite a fun evening / night / morning. So anyway, that's my Jacob Herman story, and I'm a big fan of Century Arms AKs.
Very good. Appreciate that little plug there for Century Arms, and we'll be dropping the AK Corner around the 15th this month. I can't remember what day it falls on, but it'll be around about then. I just got done with some corrective surgery or replacement surgery. I don't know what you call it. So I'm about a week from surgery, and everything's coming along nicely. So I'm getting ready to, I guess, start the third phase of my physical therapy. But doing good. Everything's great, and I'll get back to my training, and I've got some stuff coming up with the guys in Arizona over at the gun site in June. So I should be 100% for that and bring you guys some good content from that. But also, guys, Kel-Tec Weapons, Chad was on last episode, and it was more about what they were doing for Ukraine and the assistance that they've been providing with the Sub-2000s, which is a great survival gun, by the way. And we didn't really talk about Kel-Tec, but we are going to have Chad back on, and we're going to talk about their new P15 9mm pistol that they have. That was another thing why I don't have one yet. It's just I wasn't going to have time with the surgery and everything to get some range time and trigger time. But once this gets good to go and I get the trigger time, we're going to have Chad back on. We're going to talk about that in detail. So that'll be a good show. But you can go to their website, kel-tecweapons.com, use the code LEADHEAD, and you're going to get 15% off anything in their pro shop there. It doesn't include their weapons, but any of their hats and shirts. And we were talking about their flashlights. These are great flashlights that they have there. They got a couple of different models that are great for backpacks, EDC, put in your vehicle, put in your backpack kind of deal, have at your bedside. Great little flashlights. I've got several of them. They come in all kinds of different colors. You can got another one here somewhere. Here's one right here. Here's a tan one. But they run on CR 123 batteries. I think it's like 3 or 4 of those that go in there. I don't know what the lumens is on them, but they're good little flashlights. But you can get it. Your discount works on these too. So anything that's not a firearm, pretty much, you can get that 15% off discount.
Hey, Leadheads, White Settle with Seal One. Just here to talk to you and tell you a little bit about our product. Seal One CLP Plus is a bio-based, non-toxic product. It comes in a paste, liquid, aerosol, and pre-saturated bore-specific patches called sealskins. They all do the same thing, just different methods of application. The best way to use our product is to start with a clean firearm. And there's 2 reasons why I say that. First, you start with the Seal One CLP Plus by field stripping your firearm and covering the entire firearm inside and out, bore, barrel, everything with the Seal One CLP Plus. You'll see how easy it spreads around. You'll want to wait about 15 to 20 minutes. Then you come back and you want to wipe it all off. So you see how easy it is to put on and remove. And the second reason we say to use a clean firearm is you'll find that it's not clean. We're going to pull out more carbon that's been left behind with whatever product you've been using before. Okay, it takes about 3 cleanings. So I like to say a clean shoot, clean shoot, clean shoot. Just normal usage before the Seal One CLP Plus has removed whatever product that you were using before and has seasoned the firearm. It's kind of like breaking in a cast iron skillet. And after that first cleaning, you will notice a difference. And with each successive cleaning, you will find that it gets easier and easier to clean. Seal 1 CLP Plus is a dry lubricant and is designed to work as such. You will find that malfunctions are virtually eliminated when used properly, because the majority of all malfunctions are caused to carbon buildup. And with the Seal 1 CLP Plus, the carbon does not build up. Seal 1 CLP Plus is safe on all metals, plastics, composites, polymers, rubber, wood, and leather. Seal 1 CLP Plus is a one-and-done formulation. No other products are required or needed to clean and lubricate and protect your firearm. That's why we say Seal 1 and done. Seal 1 is a proud sponsor of the Talking Lead podcast and the Leadhead Brigade. Use the code LEADHEAD for a 25% off discount.
So there you go. I got the business out of the way. So let's talk about Glen. So we got a little bit about you and your background, how you got into the podcasting, Glen. What I want to learn more about is you and your background. And I've got this series of questions, and I normally wait till the end of the show to do these, but I think I'm going to pepper them in as we go. So we want to talk about kind of your background a little bit. Do you have any law enforcement, military, EMT, that kind of background?
None whatsoever.
Okay. Now, do you want to let people know that you are an attorney?
Yeah. Well, the cat's out of the bag now, but no, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
That's not a bad thing.
Lawyer. I only represent cool people. I sue the government basically for a living, and I've always worked for conservative causes. I've done some 2A stuff, some friend of the court briefs in various appellate courts, and so you're right to hate most lawyers because I don't like lawyers. I don't hang out with lawyers. I'm wearing cowboy boots and a pearl snap shirt, and driving my truck in Montana, and
very nice.
So I like law. It works for me.
Well, it's good to know law.
Yeah, it is.
So the fact that you're pro 2A, pro Constitution, pro America, pro freedom, and then you've got that knowledge base, and you're a professional at it. That's a good thing. So I guess if people are and are you state specific with your practice?
Yeah, I'm licensed in 2 states, Montana and Washington State.
Okay. So if we have listeners in Montana or Washington State, then look up Glen.
That's right. So send me an email, glentate123@gmail.com, or just get a hold of the show and they'll link us up. So lawyer, best man at my wedding was a logger. I grew up poor in a rural area. It actually, in retrospect, was a really good thing. Made me tough. It made me resilient. I'm not very fragile. I can handle stuff that a lot of soft suburbanite leftists can't handle, and so it's actually an advantage. I appreciate things because I'm used to not having them, and so I grew up poor and wanted to go be comfortable and live in the suburbs and have a prestigious job. So I went to law school. I met a med student there, who's my first wife. She's in the books, the 299 Days books, and I wanted to shed my redneck ways and live a comfortable suburban life. That didn't turn out too well for me, given how I'm constructed and wired.
Can't fight your genes, man. Don't fight your genes.
That's right. Oh yeah, you can. The boy can get out of rural Western Washington, but you can't get the redneck out of the boy. So,
that's right.
So anyway, now I have a second wife, and no need to go into that. And
are you in Utah?
And she's no, that's not at all. No, I mean, who'd want to have 2 wives at the same time, really?
There's a lot of them in Utah.
So, and she's a fellow fiction author, Shelby Gallagher, and as I mentioned, she and I are the co-hosts of the Prepping 2.0 podcast, and she's of like mind, needless to say, and we're having an absolute ball living in a free state, doing free stuff. We can be ourselves. It's unbelievable.
Is there a state income tax in Montana?
There is, but there's no sales tax. I traded
Wow.
in a 9% sales tax in Washington State for a 6% income tax. So I think that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, not
But-
bad at all. There's no state income tax here in Tennessee, but we do have a state sales tax.
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Montana's
like
the third lowest tax burden in the country. So we got
Nice.
that going for us. Gas isn't terrible. It's the taxes on gas are not awful. It's about a little over $4 a gallon, and that's about where a lot of other states are, or under where some states are. So
Yeah.
we live
We're
in Montana.
About
So that's
380 something here right now.
yeah. No, Tennessee's a great place. It's a great place. It was one of the states we were looking at when we were deciding to relocate. Washington State is just going down the toilet. I have a lot of law enforcement friends, and they tell me stories that you can't believe. They cannot chase bad guys, and people think I'm making that up. There's actually a law that essentially says,
I don't think people think that's too far fetched these days, because you see that in the news. Like it's against the law for them to pursue a criminal.
Yeah, it is. It's having terrible effects that state and blue states like it, especially on the West Coast, are just going down the tubes. So it's great to be in Montana. So that's a little about me, kind of a window into me.
Now, you're originally from Washington State? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, so you grew up in Washington State. Well, I guess you went to college there, and then you just recently moved to Montana. How long you been in Montana?
6-8 months, something like that.
Like just brand spanking new. Okay.
Yep, brand spanking new.
Wow. And what was the decision to move to Montana?
Freedom. Washington, it's just intolerable. And there was another reason, and that is, given that my wife and I are prepper fiction authors, we got doxxed by Antifa, and doxing is where they put out your personal information, like where you live. And
really?
We looked around, and this was 2020. This was late 2020, and we saw in Seattle, for example, we didn't live in Seattle, but we saw that Antifa pretty much couldn't get arrested. And I mean that very literally and accurately. It was impossible for them to get arrested for the crimes they were committing. And it was one of the factors. It was a strong factor. We thought all it's going to take is one lunatic to come to our house and burn it down, and nothing's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
And I'm not willing to take that chance. I mean, I have a family to protect, and I'm not going to be able to protect my family by staying in a place that's so dangerous. It's not like I see Antifa under
where
every
society is
rock.
Condoning what they do. And we saw that in the news left and right, all the murder and mayhem and destruction that they were doing with those riots, and nothing was being done about it. Police, again, like you said, their hands were tied. They were under orders not to do anything. They were just basically wall fixtures at that point. And they could go through neighborhoods. We saw that neighborhood that they stomped through, where the couple brandished the firearms and got in so much trouble over that, but their lives were in actual threat or danger. But nobody cared about it. And then when the thing at the Capitol happened, how many trials are going on right now? How many people are getting thrown in jail because of that? But not a soul from the Black Lives Matter or Antifa riots, nothing from that. And if they did, they released them. And then they came out with all these lax laws about letting people out of jails short of their actual terms. All these lax policies that are going on, and we're getting all these criminals out on the streets now. That reminded me of a story that I was reading before you came on. That big Sacramento shooting that just happened.
Yeah.
Two of the guys that they have arrested in that so far, criminal records. One of them, I think, got out short, like half of a 10-year sentence that he was supposed to be serving. They let him out on some sort of a domestic abuse. I don't know what it was exactly, but he was a bad dude, and that wasn't his only crime. And as soon as they let him out, boom, look what happens. 6 people are dead, 12 are wounded. So it's ridiculous, the mindset of these liberal, anti-constitutional people that are in, our leadership positions right now. So, but we try not to talk politics on this show, but sometimes we go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, I mean, that is a great reason why you would want to get the hell out of Washington State. And I've heard nothing but great things about Montana. Are you doing? Did you move on to a ranch? You doing a ranch up there?
Probably a hobby ranch is fair to call it. I don't want to, imply that I'm John Dutton and it's Yellowstone or something like that. I don't want to exaggerate.
Because that farm was for sale. So did you buy that
one? And so we have 5 acres. A creek runs through it. We've got a horse stable. No horses yet because they say that the getting a horse is the first step towards bankruptcy. So I'm taking that to heart. But we're gonna figure out how to take care of horses and what all it takes. We're gonna go into we're not going into a Petco and saying, "Oh, there's a cute little puppy. Let's buy the cute little puppy."
Yeah.
We're gonna and actually we're gonna do a charity to do horse therapeutic horses for disabled folks and veterans with PTSD. It's going to be called Third Life Ranch. And when we talk about my health situation in 2021, I can describe why it's called Third Life, because I was given a third life in 2021. Yeah. And so it's beautiful. We have all kinds of space to do all of our preps. And we just moved in there a couple days ago, actually. So we're still unpacking. So
is it just you and your wife, or do you have children as well?
She has a 16-year-old son who's with us, who's a great kid.
Okay, very good.
And he was another reason we moved, by the way, and that was in Washington State with the COVID stuff. They just slapped together this online school stuff, and they didn't know what they were doing. And he went from being an honor student, 3-sport athlete, very popular kid, to being kind of depressed. Not kind of, he actually was depressed. It was shocking to see that a guy like him would get depressed, but depression affects everybody.
Yeah, a lot of kids went through that.
Yeah, and he was just not going in a good direction. And what he needed was the American high school experience. And they only shut down schools in Montana for 2 weeks in about April of 2020. And he could go to prom, play football, go to a real school with real kids. And it was a huge factor. He is absolutely thriving now in Montana. And that was another big factor.
But you're never going to see those stats. Those stats will never come up.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of COVID, I just heard Nancy Pelosi got COVID today. She contracted COVID today.
Well, she's vaccinated. How's that even possible?
She's like double, triple boosted, and yeah, I just don't see how that's possible. But she is. Yeah, she's got it. There you go. So we talked a little bit about your background there. There was something I was going to ask you about your background. I'll come back to it. So being a prepper, I know you're not just gung-ho firearms kind of guy, but you are into firearms. You like your firearms. You do support the Second Amendment. What was the first firearm that you can recall owning?
Winchester Model 39 pump action 22. I think it's a 39, made in 1939. That was my, my goodness, my favorite. I still have it. It's in a safe in a silicone sock. I mean, it's like, it's never getting touched. That gun means everything to me.
Is that an heirloom, family heirloom?
Absolutely. Handed down. And, my second, was a, Smith & Wesson 22 pistol, I think a 412 or something. It's the one with the barrel at the bottom. They don't make them anymore. Mm-hmm. I forget the model number. I love guns. I absolutely love guns. But you're right. When it comes to prepping, I try to cover all of the topics that you need to know something about / have equipment for.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to just focus on guns, especially for guys like us. And I kind of have to pry myself away from guns and do stuff that I'm less interested in. Water, which kind of is important.
Yeah, water, food, that kind of stuff, shelter. But we're going to talk about that. We're building up to it. So you still have that Winchester, and was that like your grandfather's or your father's?
It was my grandfather's, yeah,
Okay.
and then my dad, and Dad gave it to me. Yep, it's it's beautiful gun. I looked on Gunbroker, and I think it's worth, $3,000 or something right now.
Wow,
And
nice.
it'll never get sold, ever.
That's the thing about firearms. People who buy vehicles and say, they go, hey, this is an investment. This is an investment. A vehicle is really not an investment because they depreciate in value. So as soon as you drive them off the lot, and unless you keep it pristine and whatever, you got to wait 20, 30 years before maybe you get any kind of return on a vehicle. But firearms are like gold. They're a commodity. Firearms and ammunition. You can never go wrong investing in firearms.
Well, it's funny you mention that. I mean, some cold hard facts with that. A good friend of mine who's super cool here in Montana, and in Montana you can do face-to-face sales. So he knows I'm an AK guy, and he said I got an Arsenal AK-104 and
nice.
4,000 rounds of non-corrosive 5.45, and I said, "What do you want for it?" And he said $3,200. That rifle now.
Did you talk him down?
No, I said, "Are you sure?" And it was kind of a homie hookup. And
okay, so he knew what he had. He was just giving you the good buddy discount right off.
Oh, he's in the gun business. Yeah,
okay.
He knew exactly what he had.
Okay.
Yeah, and he had a bunch of AK-74s, and he didn't need it, and he was kind of standardizing his ammo and magazines. That rifle now, and I'm not sure it's 100% exactly the same gun, but I saw Gunbroker, an AK-104, never been fired, by the way, for $7,000.
Don't doubt it. I definitely don't doubt it. AKs have skyrocketed in value over the past 5 years, 10 years. It's just double, tripled, quadrupled in value. And
the days of Century Arms C39 version 2s for $600, those are over.
Yeah, the $600 AK is there's still a few of them out there. The Pioneer Arms are still making a lower end AK, and the new Century Arms, the one they have, the BFT, the bulge front trunnion that replaced their Visca. I think they're like 800. So pretty decent in today's market entry point. Very affordable.
Yep.
So you can still get into those, but maybe we should have you on the AK Corner, one of the AK Corner episodes. I didn't realize that you were such an AK fan.
Oh yeah, I'd love to be. I don't know that I'm an expert, but I'm an enthusiast.
Well, that qualifies you. Definitely, no doubt. So before we get into some of our other questions, let's hear about. I want to know what got you into prepping. What was the moment or scenario in your life that happened that made you decide, like, hey, I need to start preparing for a collapse in? Because I remember what my question was. Now you also have a governmental background. You worked for the government.
That's right.
That is kind of what I wanted to talk about. And I think this question will probably lead into that. But what was that key moment that you're like, yeah, I've really got to start doing something? Because I see the writing on the wall.
Doritos is the answer.
Doritos.
I should start off and say that I as I mentioned, grew up rural and poor, and had all these country boy skills that I let perish and atrophy. And I realized I had this voice in my head that said, you're not going to make it through a disruption because you're soft. And so with that little thought, I was at the grocery store, And I love Doritos. Who doesn't? I mean,
this guy loves them.
Oh yeah,
They're my favorite.
any flavor, especially the Tapatio flavor with sour cream. Oh my goodness gracious!
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Oh yeah, maybe it's a West Coast thing. Tapatio is a Mexican seasoning, like a hot sauce.
I know what Tapatio is. I didn't know they had Doritos in Tapatio. I just like the good old nacho cheese Doritos. I like to make nachos out of them.
Ooh,
they're
nacho squared,
right?
Yeah.
So those are awesome. But
so
please,
I looked. I was at the grocery store. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was like enough about Doritos.
Yeah. Doritos actually play a somewhat prominent role in the 299 Days book series because I'm always talking about Doritos. But I was at the grocery store and I looked at the shelf and I realized they only had a day or two maybe of Doritos on the shelf. And then I went, because I'm weird, I went back to the back of the store through the parking lot and I saw the semi bays. And there were all these semis rolling in, backing up and unloading food. And they were just, maybe I caught them at a time when they were all there, but it just seemed like it was around the clock deliveries and there wasn't much on the actual shelves. It was just in time inventory, a term I later figured out what that meant. Mm-hmm. And as the name implies, it means they only have, let's say, two days worth of Doritos, and then they get resupplied from, in the case of the West Coast, giant distribution centers out of LA. So your Doritos have to travel 1,000 miles or whatever it is. And I thought, if there's a hiccup in the road conditions, like people are shooting at truckers or robbing truckers, or the price of diesel goes way up, or truckers go on strike, or truckers get
snowstorms,
a flu,
hurricanes.
I mean, whatever it takes to have disruptions, people aren't going to have their Doritos. There's no warehouse locally full of Doritos. And that got me thinking. And then that really fit in with the loss of my country boy skills. And I realized how fragile the American supply chain is. Boy, did we all find out about that last year, didn't we? We found out all those fears were correct, that it's very fragile.
Found out about it again. That's not the first time. Remember the toilet paper?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we call them TP preppers, prepping 1.0ers. And so that got me thinking, I need to do something. I need to do something for my family, and I need to get my skills up. I need to get my mindset. I need to get in shape. I call the suburban slug years where I just sat on the couch and ate nachos, the Docker years, right? I mean, I'm wearing Dockers and I just work in my office job and come home and eat a bunch and sit on the couch. And I wasn't really living. I started listening to a podcast called The Survival Podcast, pretty popular, about 100,000 downloads a day. And I got really energized, and I realized that it was possible to learn what I needed to learn, to be more self-reliant, and to get stuff. And you'll notice the order in which I put those things: skills first and stuff second. And it was possible to be a lot more prepared than everybody around me. And then I just kept going on it and going on it. And I ran into a lot of resistance with my first wife. This isn't going to be the complain about the ex-wife hour, because that's not good. That's not good podcasting. Nobody wants to hear that. When I hear somebody start going off about their ex-spouse, I tune it out too. So I'm not going to do that to you. But
I'll catch you off if you started that, because nobody wants to hear that, like you said. But,
that's right.
But what point in your life was it? How many years ago was this?
This was about 2008.
Okay, around 2008.
Election of Barack Obama factored into my concern about the direction of the country. Yeah. So kept preparing, did it slowly, learned a bunch of stuff, challenged myself, got in shape, just was living a better life. And so I started preparing, and that, of course, includes getting food and ammo and stuff. And I needed to come up with a cover story. I was keeping things at an offsite storage location because my then wife wouldn't let me prep. And yes, I said let. Yeah, because it's true. And so I needed to come up with a reason when the shit hit the fan and all of a sudden all this stuff that was in the storage shed ended up in our garage. There'd be ammo cans stacked up and all kinds of stuff. I needed to explain to her why that stuff was there. So I came up with the Easter Bunny story. And I put on a Post-it note some bullet points, and my idea was to say to her, and I was rehearsing the story because, I'm a litigator. I prepare trials basically, and it's my nature to get bullet points down. And I was going to say the Easter Bunny brought this stuff, which was my way of saying, not I told you so, and not how you've been so wrong for not letting me prepare. And the Easter Bunny story, turned into a page, which turned into a couple pages. And then I realized that this story, this explanation, the Easter Bunny story, would make a great little chapter. I'd never written fiction before. And so I wrote it up, and I was going to put it on the Survival Podcast forum at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing led to another, and I ended up getting a 10-book publishing deal because I wrote 10 books from it. So that's how I got into prepping, and I've accelerated through it in the sense that I haven't sloughed off. I take it more seriously every day. It's very easy to look at the headlines and realize that you got to be ready for something.
Well, not only that, but you see what's happening in other countries, Ukraine. It's not just a governmental collapse. It's a actual, being taken over by another country, an invasion by another country. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios that come into play of why somebody would need to prep. Natural disasters, local turmoils, and we saw the riots and things that happened back a couple of years ago there, and I mean, there's just all kinds of reasons why, and it makes good sense. So I don't understand. I mean, I probably understand, but your wife, why was she so against it? Your ex-wife?
She's a feminist, and
there's feminists that prep.
I know. Yeah, there are. It was I was being too much of a man. I know that sounds odd, but I was taking charge of a topic. I was providing for my family. There were guns involved, and I think it creeped her out that I wasn't being compliant and sitting on the couch in my Dockers. And that's a huge oversimplification, but we both promised we wouldn't, rip on the ex-spouses. And by the way, I have no ill will towards her.
Well, that's not ripping. I mean, you're just, what was her justification in not doing it? I mean, obviously you had some good reasons as to why. Were you, myself too, when I first start into something, I might get a little overzealous about it. I might get a little too head over heels about it, and it could be overwhelming, I guess, maybe to other people that don't understand, what or why you're doing. You think maybe that's what it was, or were you doing it, in stages kind of thing, or was it just all of a sudden, and maybe she just might have just been overwhelmed by it?
No, I didn't overdo it. If anything, I underdid it, and I wasn't spending a lot of money. She didn't know about the money that I was spending, so it's not like it was a money thing.
Yeah.
I can only conclude, and this doesn't reflect well on me, but it's the honest answer to your question. The honest answer is I don't think I had very much credibility with her. She must have heard what I was saying and thought it was an overreaction, and I don't think it was an overreaction. And of course, I've been proven right now. So that's what it was. She's just, she's a normal American, grew up upper middle class, suburban. Everything always works. The police always come within 30 seconds of calling 911. There's always food in the grocery store. There's always electricity. I exaggerate on the 30 seconds.
The 30 seconds. Yeah, definitely.
People aren't bad. There's nobody that's out to rob you. And life's wonderful. In America, nothing bad happens. And I mean,
she was living in that fantasy world that that most of us live in there. When things are good, they're good, and we don't ever expect them to be bad. But when shit hits the fan, then everybody's like, "Oh, what happened? What happened? What happened?"
Who saw this coming?
Yeah, the signs are on the wall. They have been there for a long time. But you specifically more prepare, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Correct me if I'm wrong, but for governmental collapse. And that's because you've got a good insight into the government. Can you talk about your prior governmental work?
Yeah, I was a lobbyist for conservative causes, and I got to know folks in government. I also had a governmental position, not in nothing cool, not like an intelligence agency or anything cool. It was a law thing, but I got to know some government leaders, and one of them in particular was a prepper. And I remember thinking, he's got access to all kinds of information, not classified. I'm thinking more like economic forecasts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he's got all kinds of friends and contacts, and he could easily just kind of float along in life if he wanted to. Why is this guy preparing for something bad? And that got me thinking. So I've always operated, when I was in Washington State, I should say, in kind of governmental circles. I was always the one conservative who, everyone's liberal. I lived in Olympia, the state capital, which is like state workers in Washington State. It's like double liberal. Mm-hmm. And I was the one conservative people, could tolerate. And so I get to know them, and I got to see how they thought. And it scared the bejesus out of me to see how these people, they really don't think anything bad will ever happen. They think they'll be taken care of. And in a lot of ways they are, because they get what they want. Yeah. There's two justice systems in this country, I hate to say.
Ours and theirs.
And yeah, and I basically have a PhD in left-wing mindset. And I can tell you it's a cult. Every definition of cult applies to extreme liberals. Obviously, casual liberals are not in a cult. I don't want to exaggerate. So that got me scared. Seeing the left and how they think got me really, really scared. And it was this confluence of wanting to get my redneck skills back.
And not necessarily how they think, but they also have control in pushing those thoughts and those beliefs into our way of life, which we're feeling right now these days. The past since 2008, I think is really when the onslaught really started to be apparent. They had been doing it long before that, but and we're seeing it in our schools and everywhere now. Yeah,
absolutely, and they're not hiding it anymore. That's one of the reasons we're seeing it so clearly.
Like I say, it's a full onslaught. They're no holds barred. And did you know? Have you heard the story about Cracker Jack?
Yeah, Cracker Jill.
So I don't think they've completely changed their name, but I think they just came out with a special packaging of Cracker Jill, which I got no problem with. They're celebrating and honoring women in sports. The baseball just kicked off. Was it today? I think they ended their strike or whatever they had going on, and in honor of that, I guess Cracker Jack announced that they're going to be having a special package called Cracker Jill, and like I said, it's to honor women in sports. I don't know that they're on the transgender bandwagon or not. I haven't heard anything about that or not. But they, the song "Take Me Out to the Ballpark," Cracker Jack's in that. Buy me some peanuts
and Cracker Jacks.
Yeah, popcorn and Cracker Jacks. They changed it to Jill.
You got to change everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why can't you just come up with your own song? That's a song that's been around for a bazillion years. It's a pastime. It's to celebrate baseball. Our national pastime, and if you want a song of your own, just do one of your own. Why hijack something that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to, you see it in comic books too, with, they're making Superman gay and Batman gay and all this stuff. It's just come up with your own superheroes. Why do you have to change the ones that have been around for decades? And I don't get it. They're not creative enough to come up with something of their own. They got to hijack something that's already successful.
I miss America, loved. And that's a line in the 299 Days books that the guerrillas behind enemy lines start spray painting on stuff, saying "I miss America," and those three words say it all for a lot of us. We miss America. America was good, and it was better than America currently is, any way you want to measure it. And we're not asking for much. We just want America the way it was even a few years ago. We'll settle for that. We're not talking like the 50s or something. We're not talking
I'll take the
segregation
50s
or anything.
I'll take the 50s, greatest, the World War II generation, greatest generation of our time. I'll take that. Definitely. Work ethic. They went through the Great Depression. They knew not to take things for granted. Maybe that's what it's going to take, for us to go through another big Great Depression. We're in a recession right now. We're starting to head down that pathway, that road right now with the inflation that we're experiencing. Of course, they're blaming everything on COVID. They're blaming it on Russia. Anything but their own policies and the administration that's currently there right now. Gas prices were already soaring before Russia. That they're not the cause of the inflation. Definitely not.
No, not at all. And I think there's going to be a great reset. Maybe not exactly like the left wants to have happen because they view it as a good thing. But you mentioned a depression. I think inflation is going to be the thing that does it. I think that inflation is going to be way worse than it is now, because inflation takes several months or even years to feel the effects of it. Yeah. And we've printed so much money. I don't know I see different figures. I think I've seen 80% of all dollars ever created were created in the past couple years, like 3 years or something like that. All that money, starts to hit the economy, and there's the same amount of stuff to buy, but there's way more money, so the price is going to go up. And I see crippling inflation where people, their salaries cover maybe rent or something like that, or gas and food prices are going up. It's absolutely insane. Everybody knows this. This is not, a newsflash by any means.
Sure.
But the quality of life, the standard of living is going to be so degraded. And here's something scary to think about. And that is if EBT cards have the same amount of money on them and food prices double, that means you can only get half as much stuff with your EBT card. And that's when stuff gets spicy. And that's when you've got cities that have no law and order, and people are going to start looting. I mean, they're already effectively doing that. They just walk into stores and just, take a garbage bag and empty a shelf into a garbage bag and walk out. They don't even run.
No,
they walk out. You've seen the videos.
It's like they're at, they won the shopping mart $1,000, giveaways. Like, oh, you're our 100th customer, you get $1,000 shopping spree. It's like they're all on shopping sprees now. And they don't even there's no acknowledgement of remorse or regret or, sorrow. Is like, I'm entitled to this. Buzz off, Exactly. And like you said, the security people aren't allowed to stop them or arrest them either. And they just walk on out. I can't remember who was telling me this, but they were in like CVS or something the other day. And this is like somewhere local here in Tennessee. And they saw this person walk in, and they had this bag, and they were just putting stuff in it. And then they proceeded to walk out, and the security person that was there was just standing there at the door, and, dude, just see you later, and walked out, and dude didn't pay anything. The cashier was like, hey, you gotta pay for that. And they're like, later, Gator.
And they'll never get prosecuted.
No.
The police might not even show up for small property crimes because it's, quote, shoplifting. Although when you do $1,000 worth of stuff, it's not shoplifting anymore.
No, they've changed. Yeah, I was going to say they've changed the limit on that. Is like they've upped it to like $5,000 or something before it's like a major crime or something.
Yeah, and that's the other weak link in all of this. Everyone focuses on defund the police, and that's legitimate. It's the prosecutors, the George Soros money, electing a bunch of bad prosecutors that then basically say, and my cop friends, one of them in particular showed me the memo from the Seattle prosecutor that said, in essence, unless it's a violent felony, we're not going to prosecute it. So you guys can arrest people and book them and fingerprint them, and they're going to be let out a couple hours later.
Yep.
And it's completely demoralizing to the police. You go and you work really hard and you put your life on the line, and then people just walk out, and you're doing all this work, all this paperwork for no reason. And, an officer friend of mine said that they've become a Seattle area one. They become basically firefighters in the sense that they only react to stuff, and they don't proactively go and try to prevent crime. And he said that they stay in their police cars kind of hidden because they're really concerned about getting ambushed. And so they're basically hiding out, waiting to get dispatched to something. And then they go and put a toe tag, on a dead body or whatever they do. They react only. And it's incredibly demoralizing. I'll tell you what, if police officers didn't have pensions that they needed to stay on their job for 20 years to get that pension, there would be no police officers, in at least the blue states, because
probably not.
The cops, they can't stand it. They hate going to work every day, and I feel terrible for them. Yeah.
But what do you do? That's the society, and that's the environment that they've set up for law enforcement men and women these days. And I think we're starting to see them turn on some of that. The defund the police and all that. You don't hear about that anymore. And I've been seeing more support for law enforcement by some of these liberal lefts than what we were seeing before. But who knows? Until it doesn't serve their agenda anymore, they'll turn on them in a heartbeat. There's no doubt about it.
Well, the damage has been done. One of the things that liberals don't think about, because they're idiots, is when you go and you basically have no law enforcement, and you have the CVS example, people just stealing and just walking out, not even running, just walking out. They start to have a criminal lifestyle. And we see this with the homeless, most of whom are drug addicts. The idea that the homeless are people that good people have lost their jobs. While that does happen, statistically, it's not the rule. It's the exception to the rule. And you've got this huge swath of the population that are drug addicted and are urban camping, as they call it, on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And
a lot of those people are they have mental issues.
And there's a link in many cases between the drugs they're taking, and they become mentally ill because of the really powerful drugs they're abusing. So you've got thousands and thousands of people in any given metropolitan area that have given up on an honest lifestyle, and they're just petty criminals and drug addicts. And so you could start funding the police again. You could even start getting better prosecutors. But the problem is you've got thousands of people that the only way to get them to stop committing crimes is to send them to prison for long sentences. There isn't enough prison space. There's not enough political will to prosecute them and put them away and solve this problem. So Seattle
they're
never
letting people out because of, that's probably why this one guy was out, probably because of the overcrowdedness. They cut his term short, and released him. The Sacramento shooter is what I'm talking about. But when you said homeless, that reminded me. I watched this documentary. I like watching documentaries. There's a documentary on, I think it's Prime or something. It's called the Giant Killer, and it's about this homeless guy that this police officer befriended. It's a real story. It's a true story. And, he was friends with this guy for years, and he didn't really know who he was or his background or anything, just what the guy would tell him. And come to find out, he was a Vietnam War veteran, and he had served during the Vietnam War. He was a captain, and, he had led a battalion, a platoon, and he worked his way up. He was a Green Beret, he was Special Forces kind of dude and everything. But he was like 4'9". He was only 4'9". He was a little dude. And it comes to find out he's the smallest person to ever serve in the U.S. military at 4'9". His name was Richard J. Flaherty. Is what this documentary is about this guy. And he had an amazing life, but nobody found out about it until, so he shared with him like 4 days before this guy died, before Flaherty died. He shared with the police officer his story, told him who he was, what he did, worked for the CIA, he was doing the Contra stuff and all kinds of stuff. It was very interesting. And he told him where all his stuff was stored in this warehouse. You know, he's like, I got all my stuff stored in this warehouse, blah, blah, blah. And like 4 or 5 days later, he was killed. The Flaherty guy was killed in a hit and run accident. This is down in Florida, I think. And if he hadn't have shared, you know, with that guy before he had got killed, then he wouldn't have gone and found all this stuff. He found passports and, you know, pictures of him in the service and these documents and plane tickets and all this stuff. But while he was living homeless, he was still making trips for the government over to, you know, Venezuela and Nicaragua. And, you know, he was still going to all these places like just like months before he was killed. But he was extremely mentally disturbed too. You know, from the war, and he had the Agent Orange, I think. He had cancer, but anyway, I wanted to throw that in there, but you just never know who the homeless person is, you know.
Yeah, I befriended a homeless man in Western Washington. He was a good guy, and he just didn't want to be around people, I guess, except for me, and I would go and talk to him. He was a very lonely guy. I'd go hike out to where he was. He was out in the woods, living under a tarp, and he was a good person, but he wasn't, you know, stealing from CVS.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, this guy had some shady background too. I think he had sold drugs and, you know, moved some illegal arms and stuff like that. But again, you know, was it when he was with the CIA, he got caught, you know, kind of had to live up to his, you know, his background or whatever. But he won the Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts. You know, he had all this stuff in his little locker storage area. But really interesting story. If you get a chance, you should watch that documentary. It's pretty good. So what I want to talk about now, let's kind of get out of the politics stuff. I want to talk about your books.
Yeah.
Before we run, I don't know how much time you have. And again, I don't limit, but I know you probably got somewhere you need to be. But this is interesting. I'm enjoying talking to you. So this is good getting to know you and your background. And I think I actually have one of your books. I've been, since we made communication there a couple of weeks ago, I have been turning my house upside down to try to find that book, but I could have sworn that I had 1 or 2 of your books. But I still can't find them. But 299 Days, it's fiction, but it's based on, you know, research and things that you've actually experienced in your life. Talk about how that started. Never written before in your life. You just decided to become an author for some reason. We get a lot of authors on the show, so I'm always curious as to, you know, what led them to that path, because I've always wanted to write and I just can't do it. I just have no interest in sitting down and putting words to paper. It's just not something I'm ever interested in. But I always got these great, you know, ideas and stuff. So talk about your lead into becoming an author in the 299 days. 10 books.
As I mentioned. What's that? 10 books.
10 books,
The Easter Bunny story is how it all started, and it evolved into a chapter and all of that. I needed to write a chapter explaining where I was coming from and a chapter explaining where she was coming from. And I couldn't stop writing. I couldn't stop. I had so many ideas. I realized that all these cool people that I met in my life, including a really cool Green Beret. And again, I've never been in the military. I'm not saying a guy on my A team, you know, when I've never served.
I'm the same way. I got a lot of cool friends. I'm not cool.
Yeah.
I got a lot of cool friends.
I'm not cool, but I have a lot of cool friends. And all these people in my life and my real life prepping team, a bunch of dudes from all kinds of different backgrounds, that are gun guys that became my my prepping team. The most famous of which from the books, because everyone thinks I'm so creative, and he's a real dude, and he's a 6-foot Korean guy who sells insurance, and he's one of the best gunfighters I've ever run across in my life. And so guys like that just kind of, I stumble upon guys like this, and then I realized how they all connected in this big, huge story. And as far as not writing before, this is amazing. I didn't know if the commas went inside the quote marks or outside of them in fiction. I know how to write legal stuff.
Yeah.
But so I actually went over to a bookshelf, my wife's bookshelf, and I looked at a book and it said, oh, okay, the commas go inside the quote marks. That's how little I knew about writing fiction. So I would get up at 3 a.m. I wrote this for 3 years, and my wife didn't know I was writing it. That's kind of hard to pull off. I'm kind of proud of myself that I managed to pull that off, because I knew she would
That's probably why you're not married any longer.
Exactly.
You got money she don't know about. You're writing a book she don't know about.
Yeah. I was not an angel in all of this. So I couldn't stop writing, and it kept going and going and going. And apparently, what you're supposed to do as an author, I didn't know this because I wasn't really an author. You're supposed to get a publishing deal and then write the books. Well, I went the other way. I wrote these books and I sent them to the first publisher, Prepper Press, aptly named because they do prepping stuff. And he said, "You want a 10-book deal?" And I went, "What?" I didn't think anyone would ever read these.
Just right off the bat, the first publisher you sent it to.
First publisher. 10-book deal.
I can tell you that's unique from the authors that I've talked to. That is very unique. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. And
unless you're Jack Carr.
Yeah. And so I kind of stumbled into being an author. I never intended to be one. And I wasn't terribly qualified. This story it sells itself. It's been very, very popular. Not going to tell you how many books have been sold, but it's a big deal in the prepping fiction world. It's one of the bigger series. And what it's about me. And there are 10 books. The first book is about my journey, realizing that America is very fragile and can be disrupted very easily. The tension with the wife is in the books. Probably another reason she wasn't really happy about this. I actually made her look pretty good in the books, but not good enough, apparently. One of the things that is unique about 299 Days is that it's not written like most prepper fiction books where the main character is a SEAL Team 6 guy. Mm-hmm. This is all about me, warts and all, the Docker years, being unprepared. I don't come out looking really good in the books.
Eating the Doritos on the couch.
Doritos in the couch. Yeah, that's right. But the cool thing is that a lot of people can relate to reality. And what I talked about, especially the wife who's, down on prepping, that applies to a lot of dudes, mostly dudes. There are some women who have husbands who are not into prepping. And so it really resonated with a lot of people, like a couple 100,000 people. And the other thing that's unique about it is, since I don't write fiction, it doesn't read like fiction. Mm-hmm. It's really authentic. And people have said to me, "Oh, the dialogue among the characters is so amazing." Well, it's not dialogue among characters. It's what me and my friends really said. Almost all the stuff about the team in the first few books are actual conversations. In fact, my Korean friend, Pao, in the books, we were having a conversation. He said, "Now this isn't going to end up in a book, is it?" And I said, "Oh, it probably will." Yeah. So, and it's very authentic and very fresh, and laced into the story is all kinds of prepping information, but it's not like a field manual. It's not like how many drops of bleach do you put in a gallon of water to treat it. But the characters will be needing to treat water, which tells you why it's important to treat water. It's not some dry lecture. People can relate to other people. And when people are going through stuff, that's how they learn. That's how they relate. And I see you're putting up the
So
screenshot.
for our video
with
audience, I'm pulling up his. Sometimes I forget that I can do that. I get so into our conversation that I forget to do the admin stuff on my side. So I'm on the Amazon. Is there a better site that I could go to look at your books? Or is this?
Yeah, Amazon's good. You can go to 299days.com and it'll take you to Amazon. It's got more stuff. Well, this other part of the story of 299 Days that's unique, and I think one of the reasons that the books have been so popular, is I talk about the conditions that are building up in America and what it leads to. And back in 2012, I was writing about crazy stuff like inflation, which everybody thought I was, insane to be talking about inflation in, 2012, political corruption, social upheaval, things unraveling and breaking down, most of the population thinking that things are really, really messed up in America, and some of the political cronyism and the double dealing and all that kind of stuff has since proved to be it's fairly accurate picture of what we're dealing with right now. I get a lot of folks tell me that instead of fiction, 299 Days ought to be in the current events section. And I take some pride in predicting a bunch of stuff 10 years ago that's ended up happening. And so it's about this collapse. It's really focused on Washington State, but you get dispatches from other places like Texas, where things are going pretty well, by the way, in the books. And about how this guy, me, gets his team together, goes out to a cabin. The cabin's a real place.
Is it actually you, or is the character Glen Tate?
No, it's Grant Matson, but it's me.
Grant Matson?
Yeah, that's the main character.
How'd you come up with that name?
Grant seemed like a cool name, and I knew a guy whose last name was Matson, and it was easy to spell, so it was easy to search, Google or whatever, DuckDuckGo.
Okay. I didn't know if it maybe had a personal meaning or something like that.
No. There's actually name generators on the internet. If you want to come up, and they have like whole personalities, you can get like a fake address and all kinds of stuff. You can, I don't know, it's cool, maybe become another person. But so
Weird.
This group of guys goes out to the cabin, and they start doing some security stuff, and then they start building up the community. It's really based on Green Beret unconventional warfare stuff, where you basically get embedded with a bunch of locals, and you start doing security stuff, and then working on infrastructure. I mean, the water needs to work, the electricity needs to work, all these quality of life things. You need to have an ad hoc justice system, and all these things that small communities are going to be doing on their own when they can't rely on the government. Now, the government still exists.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of functions. It's a partial collapse, not a complete collapse. The more dramatic something is, the less likely it is to occur. And I thought that, these books where a comet strikes the earth and 99% of people die, I guess could happen, but it's not as likely as, the cartelification of America, where everybody's, corrupt and you got to navigate through armed gangs and all this stuff, which is kind of where I see things headed in parts of the country, in the blue parts of the country. I don't see horrible things happening in red parts of the country, but that's a discussion for a different segment, I guess. But so the Green Beret, who's based on my friend, comes out and organizes this community for the good guys. There's I hate the term, but there's a little bit of a civil strife going on in the state of Washington. You've got the state of New Washington battling the state of Old Washington, basically. And in a surprisingly quick series of events that last 299 days, hence the title, the good guys end up winning. Spoiler alert, good guys end up winning, because I really think that common sense and decency, for the most part, is going to prevail, and that most people in this country are sick of what's going on. They're going to be more sick of what's going on when it's worse, and they're not going to tolerate it. And we're very well armed.
Now,
in
is this
country.
the group against a governmental entity, or is it the group against another group?
Mostly governmental entity, but there are gangs to deal with, which, are bad guys that just don't happen to be governmental guys.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a big battle, and the good guys win. And then book 10 is the 43 Colonels, which is the story of 43 people who did various things, very diverse, interesting things to help the effort, and they're awarded honorary colonelships by the state of New Washington. And each chapter is a story about them. There's a son of a Chinese diplomat who ends up laundering money for the good guys. There's somebody that works at the driver's license office who makes fake IDs for the good guys, all kinds of stuff. You can see
during this turmoil that's going on, and you're saying it's not nationwide, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's disruptions nationwide, but the severity of the mess varies greatly, and it's pretty bad in Western Washington, and in Texas, it's not bad.
The federal government doesn't get involved, and
no, the government of Texas is cool in my scenario, and it's not like the government in Washington State is all evil. It's not like some cheesy comic book good guy bad guy thing. There, you kind of feel sympathetic for some of the government folks, the reasons they're doing stuff. There's a lot of gray area stuff. Some people start off as good guys and turn out to be bad guys, and some people start off as bad guys, turn out to be good guys, because that's human nature.
Sure.
It's really a book about how people react to different tough situations, and I think it's pretty interesting. And these are all based on people I know.
And
so
what's the progression of your books? You've got 10 books. So obviously the first one's kicking off the origin story kind of deal. And then you've got 10. Did you have 10 books prior to submitting it to the guy, or did you just have the one book at the time and he wanted to do a 10-book deal, and that's why it turned into 10 books?
I had 9 books, and then I submitted all 9. I didn't have them divided up as books. I had like 4 books that were really long, and he's like, it's not going to work. People aren't going to read a 600-page book. By the way, the audiobooks... I have the best narrator in the world, Kevin Pierce. He does a lot of New York Times best-selling narrations. Yeah.
See how many pages this
Kevin
one
Pierce.
This was 420, so this wasn't quite 600.
Yeah.
I just finished Jack Carr's In the Blood, his latest.
Oh yeah, great writer.
Just look how thick that sucker is. I think that's probably one of his thickest ones yet. But yeah, so the audio, I really like audio. I prefer audio over, reading, because you got to actually sit down and take time. Where audio, you can sit and mow your yard or work out or whatever and get it going through. So all your books are available on the audio as well. What's the guy's name that reads?
Kevin Pierce.
Kevin Pierce. Okay, I'll check him out.
Yeah.
Because I know the guy that does his audios is really good. I can't remember what his name was.
It's an art. It is an absolute art form to do narration. People think it's just, they go, why didn't you read your books? Because I suck.
Have you heard me
at
talk? Come on. It's a lot of work too. It's a lot of work to read a book, because the different voices, and you got to get the right temperament. And so I guess you work with the voice guy to let him know kind of what you're going for in that chapter or whatever?
Yeah, I would listen to each chapter and give him notes. He would ask things like 5.45x39. How do I say that? And I said 545 by 39, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So he would do that. And then here's a story about the amazing quality of the narrator that it's going to be hard to believe, but it's true. I lived these books. It's about me, especially book 1. I wrote these books. We did 10 edits, so I'm pretty familiar with the material. When Kevin Pierce read some of the chapters in book 1, which is about my background, I realized things about myself from listening to the inflection of his voice that I never knew about myself. That's pretty amazing when a narrator can make the author understand his own life better, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
And yeah, the audiobooks are huge. A good percentage of sales are audiobooks. They're very, very popular.
Yeah, I would think that's probably more popular these days than, I mean, we just become lazy people. We don't take the time to sit down and read. But I've got, you can see them right here. I've got a whole stack there that I've got to go through there and read for stuff we've got coming up. But definitely want to check yours out. This sounds interesting. But, kind of a different twist. I like that kind of genre of book, but, I like people who put the different twist on it. I had John Gilstrap on. I don't know if you're familiar with who John Gilstrap is, but he's got a series of books that he just started that's kind of similar to what you're talking about, where the government fails, and I think there was this was like a nuclear disaster thing that caused it, where yours was just a governmental collapse. This was a whole nuclear kind of deal. But, again, kind of similar situation, but different scenario. So people are going to react different. There's going to be different things that they have to prep for and encounter. But let's talk about your prepping. So obviously, a lot of your prepping skills are going to be reflected in these books. Talk about, as far as, the prepping goes, your philosophy behind, and we say prepping, it's just short, preparation for disaster, basically.
Yeah, there are two categories of preps, and as I mentioned, skills and stuff. I'll start with stuff because chronologically speaking, that's what I started doing. Buying guns, magazines, ammunition, and all the fixins. That was what got me started in it. And then food. You can get food. We've done 4 episodes of Prepping 2.0 called Food Preps 2.0 that talk about how to buy food, how to store food, how to think about the space, and all kinds of things like temperature and humidity, how to think about moving the food if you're going to have it spread out over different places, how to cook it. And we're big fans of what we call layering food preparations, which is having different kinds of food that have different attributes, everything from MREs that are expensive but very convenient to eat and don't require any cooking, having some of those, having some store-bought canned food, having some store-bought bulk grains stored up, home canning, hunting, fishing, all these kinds of things. They all are little layers, and they diversify your holdings, because food is an asset, especially now. We got a bunch of our food preps a couple years ago. We paid, for example, $3.99 a pound for a whole beef cow, and try doing that now. You can't. And so a lot of it is food. That's the stuff. Then radios.
Power sources, radios.
Yeah, radios. I never was very interested in radios, to be quite honest. I have become so. I learned about them, and I actually put out something. They're electronic flashcards for preppers, the prepper side of ham radio, and it's not a ham radio study test. It's all the practical stuff.
Do you have those handy?
Links in it. Yeah, it's called PAM Radio, PAM.
No,
radio.
Do you have those flashcards right there? Could you hold them up?
Oh, it's a PDF. You download on your phone or an iPad. So they're not physical. That's why I say electronic flashcards. The website, by the way,
what are we going to do when the power grid goes down? We need a deck of cards, man. I need a deck of cards.
Well, you can print them out. You could print them out and put them in a binder.
I'm just saying,
they have
for
links
you
in there to stuff, to buy, to get the right batteries and stuff like that. It's pam-radio.com is where you get them.
Let me pull that up while you're talking. Pam Radio.
Yeah, pam-radio.com. I did that because, once again, there's no creative magic to this. It was just a practical thing. I realized that my team of guys needed to know how to use radios. And I said, so who's going to learn how to do radios? And it was really quiet. And so I raised my hand and I said, okay. And so me being the old school guy that I am, I I thought I'd write out stuff on index cards. And I'm talking to one of these guys who's like 30 years old. He goes, why wouldn't you do it on your phone? And I went, oh my goodness, duh. That's what we need to do. So I made these cards, these electronic flashcards, and really learned about ham radio. Again, the practical stuff for preppers, not the mumbo jumbo, it's not a hobby for me. Ham radio is not a hobby. It's a tool. And so that's a great example of skills and how you got to challenge yourself. You can't just focus on what you're interested in. You got to get outside your comfort zone. I've learned about small engines. I've learned about electricity. I've learned about medical stuff, both kind of the general medicine side and then the tactical first aid stuff. You know, I can deploy a tourniquet pretty damn quick right now. And
cleaning fuel is a good skill to learn also, how to recondition fuel.
Absolutely. Yeah, and transportation stuff, things I never knew about my truck. I just kind of drove it. Now I have a better understanding about it. I mean, maintenance of vehicles, these are things I probably should have done anyway.
Can you change a water pump?
No.
Come over to my house because I need your help.
That's right. I can hold the flashlight for you while you're
my '97 Yukon needs a little attention.
I would think so. But so that's kind of
how it's in good shape other than my water pump. It runs great. It just
it's important to have that water pump.
Gotta have the water pump. Yeah, definitely. What we're talking ham radios. I chase squirrels on this show, man. So
no, that's cool. That's cool. It's conversation. That's how conversations go.
No, absolutely. But the books sound really interesting, so I'm looking forward to checking those out and learn more about those. Now, do you have? Let's talk about the podcast. Now, you're on the Firearms Radio Network now. Apparently, you're on some radio stations throughout the country there too, where people can pick you up. What are where can our listeners listen to you on the radio?
In Salem, Oregon, and St. Marie, Idaho. We're on 2 stations in Salem and 1 in St. Marie, Idaho. That's currently it. You know, we were on more radio stations, and then they started wanting us to pay them for airtime. And our whole thing was, we're giving you free content. You can sell ads.
Yeah. And
there are almost no independent radio stations we're on KHNC in Colorado, which is actually a pretty big radio station. I can't forget KHNC in the Front Range, northeastern Colorado. And all these stations, they sell time, and they don't want free content. And
they want guaranteed money. Yeah, they want guaranteed money. They want you to pay for it, and then they'll make extra money by selling the ads.
Yeah, exactly.
And not give you any
a lot of it is infomercial stuff that's not really fun to listen to. But whatever, that's their business. They can run it how they want. Well, the place to listen, we're on all kinds of podcast things. We're on iTunes. We're on Spotify.
On all
that stuff. Yeah. The website, which is a great way you can listen to it on the website too, and you can see the other shows, see the topics, and decide if there's a particular one that you're very interested in. That's at prepping2-0.com. Prepping2-0.com. And we're on episode 179 now. It's been several years, and we've had some amazing stuff. One of our most popular guests, this will give you a flavor about the kind of stuff we do on Prepping 2.0. One of our most popular guests is Dan, the food industry executive, and he uses a fake name, and he doesn't want his ID out. He's, as the term implies, an actual food industry executive, and he tells us stuff, insider stuff. He has a perfect track record. The stuff he talks about on our show ends up happening 6 months later. He was talking about food inflation, and he doesn't just tell you, oh, things are bad, because quite honestly, you don't need an expert for that. What he does is he tells you, or he explains why.
What aspect of the food industry is he in?
Basically, distribution.
Okay, so he's in the logistics part of it.
He doesn't. Yeah. He's a big distributor, and I mean, he'll say things, and he's not like bragging or anything. But just to give you an idea about what he does, he says, "Well, I was on a conference call with the CEO of a large trucking company that you would recognize the name of. This is about a year and a half ago. And he said there's a shortage of drivers. There's going to be supply chain bottlenecks. Price of fuel is going to go up. Price of everything's going to go up. And then he'll explain why. I mean, things like packaging. He said, for example, that grocery store shelves, there was going to be spottiness and scarcity, not just because, there isn't enough corn in Iowa, but because the packaging, and he talked about ketchup bottles, those the plastic bottles are made by, one plant in Germany, and they were shut down for COVID. So there's no ketchup bottles, which means there's nothing to put the ketchup in.
Right.
So you're not going to see ketchup on the shelves. And I love understanding why stuff is happening instead of just the doom and gloom stuff. So that shows you that we're that next level of preparedness when it comes to the threats that are out there and the things you need to prep for.
Definitely a good resource. Somebody who's top into the logistics industry. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and he was on a couple episodes ago. Had a private military contractor friend of mine, Sean Swanson, former special operations guy, and his views of things like the Ukrainian insurgency and parallels between that and what it would look like in the United States. I mean, just super good stuff. I got to say, I'm really happy about the podcast. We have amazing guests, and then I have a co-host like Shelby who's pretty phenomenal. So we always have fun. I think
fantastic, man. Sounds like you got a great lineup there with the books and the podcast and the radio show. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, do you have another book project in the works, or is it your 10 and done?
Well, yes and no. That's typical lawyer answer, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons people hate us is we never say yes or no, but things are complicated. I don't plan any more books in the 299 Days series. I mean, I have one in mind, but I don't have the time to do it because, I started a law firm and I'm hustling pretty hard on that. There's a nonfiction book we're going to do. Actually, a draft of it is done. We just have to edit it. It's nonfiction. It's on food preps. It's going to be called Food Preps 2.0. And it's a complete start to finish guide on food preparations, from figuring out how you're going to organize stuff and where you're going to put it to what to get, the layering stuff, everything that I previously touched on. And I think it's going to be really helpful for folks it doesn't give you recipes and tell you how to home can potatoes or something. I mean, it's not that detailed, but it gives you an overview and makes you think, aha, ooh, that would be cool. I need a vacuum sealer. Or I never thought of this. So it's kind of a issue spotting level of book. And that'll be coming out sometime this calendar year. Not sure when. We got to sit down and do it. I mean, we just got done.
Have you got a certain kind of formula for, you need X amount of this for 1 year kind of deal? Do you have a formula for that? If you've got a family of 10, then you're going to, multiply it by this or whatever.
Well, not really. Those are all over the internet. There are all kinds of calorie calculators and those sorts of things. We don't get into that level of detail, but we do make the point that you're going to have a lot more people to feed than you think, because people are going to come to you, and the ones you want to be eating your food, because you get to decide, and there's going to be a lot of strife. A lot of families are going to get split because part of the family didn't prepare and part did, and the unprepared part thinks they can just waltz in, and you've been slaving away and spending your money and spending your weekends vacuum sealing rice, and somebody thinks they're just gonna, and they've been mocking you the whole time, and they think they're just gonna roll in
but you're not going to turn them away because they're family, or maybe you will.
Yeah, I will. We've done a couple episodes on, so I'll just come to your house when the shit hits the fan on that topic. And it's taken me a couple years to come to this conclusion, but unless you get an express invitation and you have something to offer, you ain't getting my stuff. But that's a decision everybody needs to make. So there's stuff out there on the internet about that, but you're going to have more people. then you think there's going to be charity. I think one of the reasons to prepare is to be able to help other people. After I just went and said that I would turn family members away. But there's going to be times, and there's going to be strategic alliances. There might be, the sheriff in town who, has got a posse and maybe like to be on his good side. Maybe you can feed some of his dudes and
barter.
They won't mess with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Currency at that point.
What's that?
I said it's currency at that point. You barter. You can barter. If you got extra food, that's going to be gold. Food's going to be the most valuable commodity there is.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things we talk about in the Food Preps 2.0 forthcoming book is one way to get your food preps together is to get barter items like alcohol and ammunition, if you want to give ammunition to people, which may be a bad idea in some situations.
Medicine, that kind of stuff will be
exactly. And skills. I'm being able to change a water pump on a 97 Yukon, for example. Just, to throw out an example.
Just to throw out an example, yeah. Well, if you didn't hear, I just had hip surgery, so it's a little hard for me to...
Oh, yeah.
I'm forgetting that sympathy card right now,
Rob would tell you that failing to prepare is preparing to fail. He's not a prepper, but survival skills, personal preparedness, and self-sufficiency are important skill sets in his book. His firearm of choice, the Kel-Tec RDB Survival, says a lot about him. This great compact bullpup rifle fits in a pack and tight spaces when he feels like bugging out. Unlike ordinary bullpups, the RDBS rifle redefines the concept of platform, offering a traditional rifle grip, balance, crisp trigger, and an adjustable buttstock. The RDB Survival delivers 5.56 ballistic performance in a compact package weighing 5 pounds 14 ounces. It has a patented downward ejection that allows for complete ambidextrous use with an intuitive safety and reversible charging handle. It's a get you there, never let you down kind of rifle. Innovation, performance, Kel-Tec.
And not to steer the topics, but you mentioned hip surgery. I gotta talk at least briefly because it's
yeah. I want to get into this. I know where you're headed with this too. So we had mentioned earlier that there's some other reasons that got you into the mindset of prepping, and it was kind of life and death situations. So it's very relevant to what's going on now. So I would like for you to talk about your COVID and then your diagnosis there too with the other.
Yeah,
I won't spoil it. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, 2021 was a horrible year for me, like it was for a lot of people, but it was really terrible. I should go back to 2020. The governor of Washington State, who's an idiot, decided to shut down all the healthcare facilities and for COVID, of course, because apparently there were bodies stacking up in the parking lots. Oh, that's right, that didn't happen. Yeah. And so he shut down all
these
the
millions
hospitals.
And thousands of people that were dying.
Yeah, he shut down the hospitals for, quote, elective procedures. Well, one of those elective procedures that got canceled, because I was in Washington State at the time, was a colonoscopy. Guess what happened? In February of 2021, after I hadn't taken a crap in 3 weeks, I went to the ER and they did an x-ray and my colon was completely blocked with cancer.
Oh my God. Because
the idiot governor of Washington wouldn't let me get a routine colonoscopy. I was scheduled to have it. By the way, they didn't call me back and reschedule. That's on the hospital, but that might be dealt with in another setting.
That attorney background might come in handy there. Huh?
So, yeah, in February, I'm diagnosed with colon cancer. I have emergency surgery done. Part of that is that they take out a small section of my colon. It was actually not terrible. It didn't spread. I'm cancer-free now, so that's great news.
Great.
I'll just skip to that. But part of it was that when they cut my colon, they needed to reroute my intestines.
So I got to have
a shit bag taped onto me, which was horrible. And that ends up playing a role in how this story unfolds, also, which is not a party. We're moving at the time. I'm so exhausted from chemotherapy. I can't lift anything. I lifted a car battery and walked about 10 feet with it, ended up taking a nap for 4 hours. It's unbelievable how debilitating chemotherapy is with the fatigue. So my wife had to pack the whole thing. We did 15 trips to Montana. And
Lord.
Every weekend, pretty much, we would pack up on a Friday. We'd pack up through the week, pack up various pickups with trailers, and drive over to Montana, which is a 13-hour drive, and dump them off and turn around and go back. We were lucky enough to have a rental house in Montana. We recently moved out of that to our permanent house. Anyway, so she's doing all this stuff, totally stepping up, and it's killing me. I'm a very active guy. I'm the guy who's always, I can't let a lady lift something heavy.
Yeah.
Except when I have chemotherapy. And then I kind of have to. And it was killing me. I would have to sit in this chair and watch my wife work her ass off lifting heavy things. And my second wife, who was cool about it. And so that was going on. And then in October of 2021, I had surgery to reverse the shit bag and get rid of the shit bag. And so, I mean, they
How long
cut
did
me
you have
open.
that? How long did you have the bag? The colostomy bag?
From February to October, so 8 months. Yeah.
I mean, not only just it's just the stigma, of having that too, and being around people, and it's very demoralizing, I guess.
Yeah, and
to have that,
and it got infected.
Oh,
I had a 1 hour session where a nurse had to come to my house because it all got infected. Because if you don't put the sealant on everything, you've got shit and stomach acid up against your very soft belly skin, and it got infected. And for an hour, I had a nurse using a pair of scissors scraping the dead, infected stuff. And my stepson said I was screaming. I mean, it was horrible. So it's not just the inconvenience. And yes, every couple of days, my wife had to change the bag, which, is asking a lot of her. But it got infected, and then I got little infections, and it was terrible. So I'm so relieved in October. Oh, I'm going to get the shit bag off.
Absolutely.
This is great.
Yeah.
So I'm weakened because I had pretty significant surgery. And the day after my surgery, I get tested for COVID, and I have COVID. Well, now I'm completely weakened. So
the
what's
worst
a
state
flu,
to be in, to get COVID.
Yeah. What's a flu to a lot of people is a bigger problem when you've just come out of surgery. So they send me home, and those oxygen things, those sensors you put on your finger, and it's like,
I had one on mine. Yeah, had one during my surgery.
Right, exactly. So an oxygen level, 95, anything from 100. To 95 is good. Anything from 90 to 95 is pretty good. I mean, you want to be in the 90s, the oxygen saturation level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, mine was 51.
Jeez.
That's brain damage.
How are you
material.
awake?
Yeah, I got really sick, and so I went back to the ER, and they ended up putting me on a ventilator, which had a 20% survival rate. I don't
That's
remember
the sign
anybody,
of death. The ventilators. They were in the beginning of the pandemic. Everybody remembers. We're short of ventilators because we're putting everybody on ventilators, and all those people were what? They were dying.
Yep.
But yet they were still putting them on the ventilators.
Before and after I went on the ventilator, when I was in the ICU, I could see out my window. Once or twice a day, there would be a gurney go by, and it would come back with somebody in a body bag. People were dying all around me.
Oh, geez.
And so I'm on a ventilator for 8 days. I had to say goodbye to my wife because, again, 20% survival rate. During this whole time, I'm on painkillers and sedatives. I don't remember, which is why, by the way, I lost Jacob Herman's phone number because I tried to log into my phone too many times with the wrong password, and it locked my phone out and erased everything.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
Anyway, so
that may be the one good thing that came out of all this is you lost Jacob's phone number.
That's right. So I come off of the ventilator, which was a miracle, and I had thousands of people from the show and from the books praying for me. I know this isn't a religious show, but I 100% give the glory to God. That's the only reason I'm getting emotional now. It's the only reason I survived that ventilator was because of all those prayers. So
were you out of it? Obviously, you're out of
Yeah.
it when you're on a ventilator. You have no idea what's
it's
going on.
functionally an induced coma.
Yeah.
And so I came off the ventilator, and I should say that before I went on the ventilator, when I was deciding whether to get intubated, that tube down your throat, I didn't want to die, but I was okay with dying. It was so horrible to try to breathe and not be able to. It was like being waterboarded for several days, and I hadn't slept in probably 9 or 10 days.
Just exhausted.
My brain was super messed up. And again, not a religious show, but I wasn't afraid to die because I know where I'm going. So I'll just leave it at that.
Going to hell? Going to heaven? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's where I'm going. So I felt guilty, though, because I was about to check out. Odds are I was going to check out on my wife.
But you didn't know that at the time either, because none of the statistics or studies were out on the ventilators, were they?
Well, the 20% thing, I don't remember them telling me, but I had like a quart of Dilaudid in my IV. So, I mean, who knows what was going on. I did all kinds of crazy things. I tried to pay off my mortgage by like wiring $200,000 that I didn't have. I mean, it was crazy town. So
did they take it? Did you get paid off?
My wife's like, yeah, I'll get right on that. And she's like, no.
I would assume that when you're in this state of mind, you're not able to make decisions for yourself. She had power of attorney and decision making. Is that correct?
Oh, no. I was sadly making decisions for myself. I had the wristband that says DNR, do not resuscitate, which goes into this next phase of the story. So I was okay with dying, but I didn't want to die because I didn't want to leave her behind. I mean, I was saying stuff like, well, I got a $1 million life insurance policy. We can pay for the remodeling of the house. I know that's not what you want, but I mean, at least there's something positive that's going to come out of this. This is the kind of stuff that goes.
Well, that
through
and
your
losing
head.
Jacob's phone number, that two positive things.
Well, if you have Jacob Herman's phone number, you need $1 million worth of life insurance.
That's right.
You never know what's going to happen. So when I came off the ventilator, I did a 180. I absolutely wanted to live. And people say, they use this cliche phrase, but it actually applied to me. They say, oh, with every fiber of my being, I wanted a Dorito, or whatever they say.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you something. With every fiber of my being, I wanted to live. I came out of the coma, basically, with an incredible appreciation for life. And I remember I was lying there, and I was yelling out. By the way, I don't know if I was really yelling, because I could have had a tube in me and I could have been almost hallucinating, but I was thinking or yelling, don't know which. I want to live. I want to live. And I didn't want there to be any communication errors. Again, I'm wearing a wristband that says do not resuscitate. So I figured clarity was important. So I did something that I later apologized to the doctor for. I saw the doctor out of the corner of my eye, and I said, if you kill me, I'll kill you. Yeah, he took it well.
You gotta lay it out,
Yeah, I just being honest. I mean, I'm really not in much of a position to kill anybody.
So I would assume that before you got on all these drugs and everything, that you had signed something about a do not resuscitate.
Oh yeah.
And did you have that ripped up at that point after that?
No,
they're like no take backs.
Exactly. Well, I remember when they cut with their special EMT shears. They cut my DNR bracelet off. It felt really good because I knew there wouldn't be a communication error. So came off the ventilator. I was euphoric, appreciating life. I mean, you look at life differently.
Do you have any recollection of being in the coma? Did you have dreams or anything like that?
No, I didn't. Absolutely nothing. It's like
And how long were you in a coma?
8 days.
8 days.
Yeah.
And you were on that ventilator for 8 days.
Yeah.
That's, definitely the odds. You beat the odds. Because, I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. Did you have that will? Did you have that will to live? I think you answered that before you went under. You were like, I don't want to die. I have something to live for now. Before you went under.
It was complicated. I'd love to say yes because I'd end up sounding a lot cooler than I actually am. As I say, I was okay with dying, but I felt guilty about leaving my wife. So it's not that I wanted to die, but I can't say it was a strong will to live. I didn't know what was going to happen, and it's weird. I should have a better answer, but I just don't because I was so
your answer's
fuzzy.
Your answer, It's just and that plays a lot into it. Now, you had your wife there with you. Did you have any other people there? You got like brothers, sisters, family members that were, and I guess it doesn't matter because at that point they weren't letting people in, were they? They weren't.
That's right. They weren't letting people in. I didn't have any visitors. By the way, speaking of letting people in, my wife, who's a badass, tried to smuggle in some ivermectin for me, and they busted her and they took it away from her.
Are you serious?
Yeah. A pastor friend of mine drove across 2 states to get the ivermectin to her. And then she tried to, as I say, smuggle it in. And not only did they take it from her, it was worth about $200. The lawyer in me is like, you actually owe me money. But they gave her and me quite the tongue lashing about ivermectin. And one of the doctors, who's a complete asshole, absolutely talked down to us like we were, children.
Yeah. And
turns out he's wrong, but he's an interesting guy. The short version of the story is after I come out of the coma, he's adjusting the oxygen levels. And I said to him, I'm a funny guy. I like to be lighthearted. I said to him, hey, you're the guy that tried to kill me. And he doesn't say anything. And I said, I'm joking. And he said, I know. And he just walked out. What a weirdo, man. We called him Dr. Kevorkian because he seemed to be.
But you got to kind of put yourself in that guy's shoe too, where, this pandemic or whatever, and people are probably dying left and right on him, so.
Yeah.
He's probably not in the mood for jokes at that point, because he probably had several people die on him. Not sticking up for the guy. I'm sure he's an asshole. I mean, anyway, but.
So I came out of it with an appreciation of life. And one of the things that I came out of this with was everyone needs a purpose in life. And I think, and I could be wrong because this is up to God and God's way smarter than I am. I think God had a purpose for me. And I think it's, again, this might be vain, but I think it's doing the podcast, getting people prepared, motivating people.
Yeah, he wanted you on my podcast.
He wanted to be on this show.
He wanted to be on Talking
Lead.
Lead
On this show.
Yeah.
But no, I seriously, I realized there was a purpose. Remember, at the beginning of this segment, I talked about Third Life Ranch and the horse thing. The reason I call it Third Life Ranch is I've been given a third life. I was born again, which is a religious thing. And then I was given this third life, and I'm going to make the absolute most out of this third life that I've been given. And that includes things like, doing horse stuff for autistic kids and PTSD folks, and really living. I'm getting emotional again. I'm not above being emotional. I mean, it's heavy stuff.
Now, before all this, you didn't really have these aspirations. Is that right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, you had a newfound appreciation for life, and you're wanting to, share it and let others experience it to the max. I think that's awesome. And the fact that you're in the position to do that, from again, I don't know how much money you've made off your books, but it sounds like that you've done well, and the law firm that you've got there, that you can do that. And I think it's amazing that you're doing that, because a lot of people would just, be selfish and enjoy everything for themselves.
go on trips and stuff like that.
Go
Not
on trips
interested.
or just enjoy the horses themselves. Do it just for themselves. But the fact that you're looking at opening that up to other unfortunate individuals is awesome. That's great. And if there's anything we can do to help once you get that going, or help you get that going, 100% behind it. Love it.
Absolutely. Well, when we get it started, it'll be at least a year. I'll shamelessly invite myself back on your show, and
or invite me to Montana to the farm.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, come on out anytime. Seriously,
I would love an excuse to come to Montana.
Well, honestly, you got my phone number. You just text me, tell me when you're coming.
Hell yeah!
And it's an amazing place. But we viewed the new property with the horse stable as it was a gift from God. We didn't look for a place with a horse stable. We've never owned horses. And I looked at that horse stable and I thought, there's a reason this is here. And I need to do something with it. It's not just going to be a place to store my lawnmower. I got to do something. Rice. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do. So it's all good. Awesome. It's all good because I ended up living, but there have been a lot of positive things that have come out of this otherwise terrible thing. My wife is in a lot of ways the one that bore the brunt of it. She describes it as, when I was on the ventilator, she would have to simultaneously be hoping and praying that I lived, and also at the same time planning a funeral. I mean, she picked out a burial plot for me. She had to be in two completely opposite worlds, each one of which is very emotionally draining, but she was doing two of those emotionally draining things at the same time.
The fact that you had cancer, you were coming off an infection from that, and then you got, COVID, you had that triple whammy going, and you still survived and pulled through. I mean, that's got to make you think that there were higher forces involved, higher entities.
Oh, absolutely. Involved. No question about it.
So
no one could ever convince me otherwise.
Glad you made it, brother.
Thank you.
You're, like you said, you're making the most of it. You're going to be doing some awesome things for other individuals that deserve it and can't do it for themselves. And I think that's awesome. So your website is, again, let's give our listeners the website.
Probably the best one would be prepping2-0.com, prepping2-0.com. Other ones are 299days.com. Wife's books are at agreatstate.com. And that's how people can find out about all the stuff.
And they can listen to the podcast. They can go to the website to link up there, and then they just search the Prepping 2.0, and it'll come up, or they can go to the FRN and link in there too.
Yeah, of course, FRN, which is firearmsradio.net, is another place to get the things. But as far as like Apple or whatever way you get your
favorite podcasting app, you go, just like you listen to Talking Lead, you can go find Glenn and, I'm sorry, what's her name?
Shelby.
Glenn and Shelby on the Prepping 2.0. Talk about some of the guests that you've had on your show, on your podcast, and because you said you do a different level. You're like a little more advanced on your prepping. So give just high level some of the topics that you've talked about and that you've got coming up.
Oh, let's see. As far as guests we've had on the past, we've had the real Special Forces Ted, who's the actual Green Beret friend of mine, who is the character in the books, Special Forces Ted. Again, not very creative. And we've had Joel Skousen, who wrote a very big book on strategic relocations for, being in a better place, prepping wise. We've had Matt Bracken on a couple times. He's a former SEAL. He's written some fiction books on a fictional Civil War in the United States. I mentioned Sean Swanson, the PMC friend of mine, Dan, the food industry guy. Oh my goodness, we've had medical folks on.
Let me ask you this. I was wanting to ask you this before I forget. We're talking about the like the dry food storage, the MRE type stuff, the add water. What's your preference as far as that kind of food goes? I tried one not too long ago, and I had them on the show too. Nutrient Survival. And their stuff was pretty good. But as far as like long-term storage, I don't think you're supposed to store it for more than maybe a year or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but
chunks of the layering thing that I mentioned. First thing that came to mind when you asked the question was, I believe in stuff that you only need to add hot water to. Either you can eat it just, out of a can or a bag. Because one of the things people don't think about is you're probably not going to have electricity and natural gas and all these other things. People will buy food and they never put any thought into how to cook it and then how to clean afterwards and how to take out the garbage and how to dispose of the garbage. It's a continuum. It's a system. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of stuff you can add hot water to. I'm allergic to gluten, so a lot of stuff's off the table. Instant oatmeal is a big thing. I'm a huge fan of MREs. I wouldn't want to eat them all the time, but they're actually pretty ingenious. And at I don't know what it's going for now with shipping, $8 or $9 a piece. They're not that expensive. I mean, there's that. I'm a big fan of what we invented a term. Let's see if it takes off. I'm going to launch it on this show and see if it becomes a thing. Homeries, which are homemade MREs. And that's basically you get, a can of tuna fish and stuff you like and that you eat and you put them together. And the cool thing about MREs is there's individual packages and you don't have to eat it all at once. You can put it in your cargo pockets and eat it later and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. I'm a fan of Instapots and crock pots. Throw some rice and some water and some deer meat and spices. You got to have spices. You absolutely have to have spices and sauces. And that's another thing people overlook. And I'll tell you, beans and rice gets pretty bland. I'm a big fan of masaca, whatever, corn flour. You just add water and you flatten it out and you make corn tortillas. It's very cheap. I'm a fan of canned chili, number 10 tins, which are those pretty big cans you see. Like if you look in the back of a restaurant, they got the number 10 tins. Yeah. They're like 6 pounds of food or something like that.
Sam's or Costco's and
yeah, exactly.
Get that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so those are some good foods. If I could eat pancakes because they have flour in them, I was before I got
gluten-free pancakes.
They're awful. They're horrible.
Spices. There you go. Get you some spices.
Tapatio sauce and some gluten-free pancakes. Why would anyone listen to my advice on prepping food if I just said that was good?
Sprinkle some bacon in there.
Yeah, and you gotta have comfort foods because morale is a big deal. Everything in your food preps, you always need to think of also as possible barter items. I mean, we have diapers and feminine hygiene products, even though we don't use any of those. Yeah. Just because charity-wise and barter-wise could be a good thing. The only thing, it's not just 5.56 ammunition that's going to be good for barter. Think about stuff like, diapers. People are going to need all kinds of stuff that they're not going to be able to get.
Batteries.
What's that?
I said batteries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got some solar arrays and some battery banks and some things
Band-Aids,
for rechargeable.
Antiseptic.
Yeah, tourniquets.
Bleach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it down.
Yeah. I've done this a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't openly talk about all my stuff, but I have awesome guests like you on to talk about and share the information. But there's lots and lots and lots that we could talk about. I would love to have you back on. I'd like to invite you to come back on again, and maybe we could get into some of the 2.0 prepping tips and tricks that you and Shelby. Did I get that right, Shelby?
Yep, you sure did. Think of Shelby, Tennessee. That's how you can remember it.
Shelby, Tennessee. I hate Shelby. That's Memphis.
Oh, okay.
Shelbyville. We can take Shelbyville. That's just down the road. That's a town just outside of Murfreesboro. Famous for their horses, by the way. Tennessee walking horses. But yeah, I'd love to have you back on. Is there anything else that we need to cover to make sure you got any other products or, Anything like that our listeners should be aware of? Do you do classes or courses?
No, Prepping 2.0 is the podcast is effectively a class and a motivational thing every week. So we don't do classes per se.
Yeah, I think that you would do well to have a physical class, to have people come out to a location and teach them the stuff in person. I think you guys would do well with a course like that. Just my suggestion.
We've thought about it, yeah.
Just because I selfishly want to come.
Yeah, day jobs, darn day jobs.
Well, maybe those will go away. You start those courses, you make the money from those courses. Yeah. Now, do you do defensive training courses, combat training courses, anything like that? Is that part of your prepping regime?
No, if you mean by do them, if you mean take courses.
Take them, yeah, learn.
Yeah. I have, and I don't have the time to go out and do it. And being, I'm just now recovering. I just got a port taken out of my right shoulder that was in my heart. That's right where a rifle stock goes. So I haven't shot in, geez.
So you're still recouping from your the cancer treatment and the COVID?
No, they're pretty much over. They are over. It's just that I haven't been out training like I would like to. I have in the past. It's phenomenally important. Training doesn't just help you get skills. It teaches you how to practice. I mean, it gives you the good stuff to do on your own time. You're learning how to practice, which is one of the key things about training that a lot of people I don't think appreciate. I most certainly do not know everything about gunfighting, and every single course that I've ever been to, I've learned not just a little, but I've learned a lot. So, and they're fun too. It's just a blast, and it's kind of cool. I go do stuff with, take training classes with the team, and they're all guys that are like 20 years younger than me. And I'm the old guy. So when I could beat them, it felt pretty good.
And you say with the team, is this your preparedness team?
Yeah.
Your fire team?
Yeah. And they're still in Washington State. So we me moving has kind of severed that, which is sad. But
see, it shouldn't, because that offers up a whole nother option for your group to be able to be mobile with.
Yeah.
You've extended the family.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's my thought.
Yeah.
Anywho. Glenn, it's been a pleasure having you on. Greatly appreciate your interesting cat, man. Definitely want to have you back on sometime.
My pleasure. Love it. Yeah, you've been a great interviewer. You've kept the conversation lively and
well, I apologize. I'm normally more organized than this. Like I said, I just had surgery, so I just now getting all the drugs out of my system to where I'm clear and clearer. I'm not 100% clear right now, but clear enough. So, Leadheads, make sure you go and show Glenn how much you appreciate him being on the show, and if you're interested in learning more about what he's doing, go check out his website. You're not on the social medias as far as Instagram goes, but you're on Facebook. And you've got the website. Are you on anything else?
Just Facebook. I'm old. The grams, it's too much work.
You can't be older than me.
Oh, I'm pretty damn old.
I'm pretty damn old too. I'm past 50s, so.
Okay,
50s,
I'm in my
50s.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're probably about
we look
the same
good,
age.
though. We look pretty good for mid-50s, I got to say.
For going through all the shit we've gone through, hell yeah, we look great, brother.
These are city miles, not country miles. I mean,
City miles. I hear you. I hear you. Leadheads, go and show all our sponsors some love. Kel-Tec, go to Kel-TecWeapons.com. Go to Mission First Tactical, MissionFirstTactical.com. Seal1, Seal1.com. Factory 47, factory with a K, Aktory 47.com. Flatline Fiber Co. Go to their website. Defiant Munit. Well, wait. I'm giving you everybody that has the code LEADHEAD. So you just put the code LEADHEAD in, and you're going to save some money on all of those websites. If you go to Defiant Munitions, LEADHEAD all caps will get you 10% off. There's another one. 1776 United for our classic logoed items, shirts, patches, and our Leadhead Brigade. You go to 1776united.com, and it's Talking Lead, and you're going to get 20% off there. So go show our sponsors some love. I don't know how much you appreciate bringing this to you free. Doesn't cost y'all a dime. But if you want to send me money, feel free. You can email me, talkinglead@gmail.com, and I'll tell you how you can send me money. Or if you want to send me chocolates or whatever, I'm open to that. Love hearing from the Leadheads. If you've got show suggestions, guest suggestions, or if you've just got jackwagons you want to nominate. And we didn't do the official planes and trains segment, Glenn. I had this segment we called the Jackwagon Train, and we called the Leadhead Brigade Heroes. They get a ride on Lead Force One. But we kind of worked it in a little bit sneakily, talking about some of the politics and stuff. But that's it, Leadheads. Appreciate 10 years of the support from you Leadheads. And you know that we will have some awesome giveaways. I'll do some sort of big 10-year special giveaway with all our friends and sponsors of the show. Our last one we did was this past December. IWI put up a Galil, and we had several of our friends of the show that put up a nice package to go with that Galil Ace that we gave away. So more of that good stuff coming this year. Stay tuned. More guests like Glen Tate, awesome guests, authors. Who knows? You never know who's going to show up on the Talking Lead podcast. Maybe we'll get Jacob Herman. May make another guest appearance. He's been on the show several times. So Jacob is a friend of the show too. But again, Glenn, appreciate it. And you Leadheads, go show Glenn some love. We get him back on the show. But until then, as always, Leadheads, keep your loved ones close.
Keep your firearms closer. It's your job as a man to provide for your family, and that means doing a little preparation in advance. It doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be time-consuming. It's your damn job. You better do it.
Right on.